welcome back to the O Cheap channel, the channel dedicated to all things cheap in the world of fragrances. And today's video is going to be very quick and short. I'm going to briefly cover a small line of fragrances that are actually probably one of the cheapest and inexpensive lines as a whole that I've covered so far. And these are ones that you can find very available at most rack stores, especially Ross Dress for Less. You can find each of them for like $14 or under, which may make you want to skip over, especially when you look at the presentation and the name and the price altogether. You probably think it's going to be something that's way too synthetic, not worth the value of money you're spending, and going to be a waste of time and effort. But really, you'd be missing out a fair bit and a good bit of surprise factor in there, because the company we're going to talk about is this one here by Alfa Romeo, which is a car company that mainly deals with racing cars, which I don't know a whole lot about cars personally, but that's what I can get out of this and what I see. And like I said, you'd be fair to dismiss this looking at the presentation and the ambiguity in the name and all that, and so was I at first as well, until out of sheer curiosity, I bought one of these, tried it out, was very surprised, and quickly went out and sought the rest of them, seeing that it was only a small line, got all of them together, and really have been enjoying them ever since. And I wanted to quickly cover them in case you are able to go out there and find them yourself. Starting off with this first one here, which is Alfa Romeo Blue, and just by looking at the name and the color of the bottle, you can probably quickly already deduce that this is going to be something that is going to be your typical summer marine, freshy, citric, fruity, aromatic, things like that. And you would be right to assume that, because that is exactly what it is. Let me quickly go through the note breakdown real quick though, and then we'll get into what the wearing experience is. Starting off with the top notes, you have our C notes, aromatic spices, and fern. Middle notes are floral notes and fruits, and the base notes are dry wood and patchouli. So a very vague note breakdown, things like aromatic spices and floral notes, not really telling what they are. Things like fruits, not really being specific on what kind of fruits, but you definitely actually get all of that in there, and you could probably pick out what you think is this and what is that. But when you first spray this on, in my experience, what you're gonna get with this is a big whiff of citric, fruity sweetness in the air, a good bit of muskiness, and a big push of that marine, ozonic, aquatic kind of feel in there. Those C notes really come through very strong. And as it quickly dries down, you get a little bit of a floral aspect, like white florals, very like beachy, summery, a little bit, again, more of that fruitiness, but a lot more aromatics come through right after that. Little herby, a little bit green as well. A very generic but soft woodiness comes through underneath it. And actually you get a fair bit of a almost sea salty minerality in there, making it actually slightly earthy along with that patchouli, and almost has a nuance of a wet rock or stone, like petrichor kind of smell, making this actually a little bit different, a little darker than what you'd expect out of something that's mainly for a cheap summertime fragrance. But it's not really anything that's going to be too unique, very easy to wear daytime or nighttime, particularly for the high heat of summer and even spring and that warmer side, and not really anything that's going to be too youthful or too mature, very much in between there. Very much your run-of-the-mill aquatic beach summer fragrance, somewhere between like Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue and Bleu de Chanel and Nautica Voyage, and a mixture of all of those with a little bit of a twist to it, like I said, with that more darker minerality that's in the base. And I will say that after you spray this for the first time, it is going to smell very cheap, mediocre, and very poorly done, but give it some time, let it sit, spray it a little more as you go through, and you will see it develop a little more of a nuance to it as it goes through the wear. It's definitely not way out there in left field, but still very enjoyable, very grounded, and way higher quality, and especially the blend, way smoother than you expect for something in this price range. But again, the aquatic blue summer freshie of the line here, it is Alfa Romeo Blue. Now on to the next one here. In the next color, it is Alfa Romeo Red. And when I looked at this one, I thought it was gonna be something that was, way more spicy. It's gonna be more warm, more for the fall and winter time, the cozying up kind of deal, maybe a little darker fruits and things like that, but that is not at all what I got out of this. And actually what I did end up getting out of this was way better and way more interesting and a little more pleasant than what I expected. Let's go ahead and go again to that note breakdown, and then I'll get into the wearing experience. The top notes you have on this are citruses, pink pepper, and pineapple. Middle notes are fruits, and the base notes are tonka bean and amber. So again, a very vague, not really too exciting note breakdown, but what you get out of this is definitely a lot more nuance. What you're gonna get when you first spray this on is a big hit of sweet fruitiness, a little bit of a citric factor in there, but it's more going to be just sweet fruits, almost like juicy, tutti fruit kind of deal, but a lot of freshness right underneath it, a little bit of a musky airiness, almost a little fluffy and cloud-like, not anything that's overly done sweet as well, a little bit of a vanillic thing in there, and not anything that's too overbearing, not anything that's syrupy. It actually keeps it very light, airy, fresh, and expansive. And then right quickly behind it, a good bit of an ambery warmth, maybe ever so slightly spicy, some very nice soft woodiness, a little bit of a powdery nature, but overall through and through, you do keep a very fresh profile with this, with those fruits, with the citruses, with all that sweetness in there. It's actually very, very surprising, almost like a tropical cocktail of fruits, but way fresher. Again, not overbearing sweetness, and even though that amber is there, it's not anything that's too warm or base heavy, not anything that you could be like, oh, I can only wear this in the colder seasons. I think this is actually something you could wear year round. The freshness definitely lends itself to the warmer side of the year, like spring and summer, but yet the sweetness and the more ambery, musky, warm dry down is something that could be for more in the fall and even winter time. You just might have to spray up a little bit. It's very, very pleasant though. Actually, spoiler alert, probably one of my favorites from the line besides the next one that we're going to talk about. It's way more surprising, very compliment getting, very, very easy to wear. If you're someone that doesn't like overbearing sweetness, but you still want something that's fresh and likable, I think you could get away with this. And if you are someone that does love sweet fragrances, then this one is for you. You just might want to spray a little extra on to get a little more umph out of it. The perfume behind this is very well blended, very nice. It is simple, but how everything plays together is very likable and easy to enjoy. And this is actually a very unisex profile. Even though it is marketed for men, I think both guys and girls could wear this just as easy. Again, if you want something that's very year-round, sweet, fruity, but a little playful, a little youthful, great for casual out and about. If you're going to the movies or chilling out with friends, this is a great thing to wear. Probably not gonna be the more for mature side or formal gatherings, but one that any other time aside from that, I think is great. And like I said, one of my personal favorites in the line. I absolutely really enjoy this one and wear it on the regular despite everything else that I have in my collection, because it is such just easily to enjoy and wear. I just can't help but smell it over and over. Again, this one here for the more casual, sweet lovers out there, it is Alfa Romeo Red. Now on to the next color, going in a little darker with Alfa Romeo Black. And you can probably assume by the name, the color, and the overall vibe of this, that this is going to be the darker one out of the line, probably one's the deeper, richer, maybe more nuanced one, and you would be correct for assuming that, but let's get into the note breakdown and see why. On the top notes you have on this are elemi and grapefruit, the middle notes are black rose and nutmeg, and the base notes are alcantara accord and dark woodsy notes. So even though there are a few things in there that are a little vague or simple, like the dark woodsy notes, you do have some interesting notes in there like black rose and alcantara accord and things like that, which would confirm your theories that this is going to be the darker one. But let's get into why with the wearing experience. So when you spray this on, immediately what you're going to get hit with is a good bit of a spicy resinous feel with a mixture of that nutmeg and that elemi. And elemi does give a little bit of a resinous, almost balsamic, woody, ambery kind of aspect. You get a little bit of that grapefruit, but it's not really so citric. But what you do get right underneath that is that woodiness, a lot of almost a balsamic, conifer, pine tree kind of woodiness in there, a little bit of a leather aspect as it dries down. You do get that floral note that's immediate right from the top to mid. It's not anything that's too funeral rosy, nothing that's like in a garden, just a nice, almost terpenic kind of rose aspect in there, a little darker, not anything that's overly noticeable, but more of a floral aspect overall. And actually, as it dries down, it has a little bit of a smoky earthiness in there, very much a more deeper, rooty, almost woody kind of aspect. Definitely the darker one out of the line with a few nuances of freshness just here and there with the citruses and a little of that spice. That nutmeg is noticeable, but you're really only going to get just a generalized spiciness with it, but very much the more matured, darker side of the line here. It's one that's actually been compared a lot to Dark Rebel by John Varieties, which is a discontinued fragrance, which I personally have tried to seek out myself, but after finding that it's very expensive, even at eBay, eBay, online, and then you don't even know if you're getting the real thing. I decided to back off. But when I found out that this was compared a fair bit to that, and a lot of people confirmed that this did have a lot of similarities to it, I was a little more relieved that I didn't have to spend so much money on that when I could have something like this. The quality on this as well is very, very high. A lot more interesting, a lot more of a niche kind of style to it. Very well blended, very smooth, and one that even though it does have more darker aspects to it, you can't even wear this in the daytime, but I would say this is probably exclusively fall, winter, and spring, day or night. You just have to spray more or less depending on where you're going and what you're doing. But yeah, this one is the most unique one out of all these here. Probably not gonna be the easiest of wears because of those darker, woody, like I said, spicy, resinous, balsamic, earthy aspects to it, but one that for you more mature guys and you fragrance lovers out there who want something that is super cheap but punches way above its weight class, this is the one to go for. Very underrated. No one's going to talk about it and no one's going to point at it on the shelf and tell you to buy it, but this is one you definitely should buy. The most interesting one here, and one that even stands out in my collection, is one that I would go to and point people out saying, yeah, you need to go try this one out, is the darker, smokier, woodier, spicier one out of all the ones here, and it is Alfa Romeo Black. Now on to the next and last one in this line, is actually the most recent release coming out in 2024. It is this one here, Alfa Romeo Green. And actually this is the first one that I bought out of the line. Really didn't know what to expect, had very low expectations, but after I smelled it, I was pleasantly surprised. Went out and the black one was actually my second buy, and after being well exceeding my expectations on that, I quickly went out and got the other ones, but this is the one that started it all, and it's one that I thought, especially after seeing the color and the name, that is going to be the more aromatic, green, herbaceous kind of one, probably more in my style. But even though that was not at all what I expected, it was not a disappointment because I do really enjoy this one. Go ahead and get into that note breakdown real quick. What you have are top notes of apple, bergamot, fruits, and citrus. Middle notes are clove, geranium, and mahogany. Base notes are sandalwood, vetiver, and cedar. So we actually have a more fleshed out note breakdown with this, not anything that's too vague, like, oh, we have these notes, we have these accords. It's actually being more specific with this. Not that you can tell every single one of those in this, but it's nice to know that they actually put the effort into it, a little more so than most designer brands do now. But what you're gonna get out of this when you first spray it on is a good bit of fruity sweetness with a slight spice in there. And then quickly behind it, you get a little bit of a warm woodiness, a little bit of aromatics in there. And as it dries down, you keep getting more of the woods, a little musky, a little bit powdery, and overall a sweeter profile through and through. And this actually has a lot more of a definite similarity to a certain designer fragrance, more so than anything here. And what this is gonna be more similar to is Hugo Boss Bottle, the original one, the apple pie smelling one that is still hyped and wearable even today. Even after being released years upon years ago, people are still rocking it and enjoying it today. And this has a lot of similarities to that one. But the key differences is this definitely has a more powdery, spicy sweetness than that one. Not so much on the cinnamon, not so much on the apple noticeable fruitiness in there. It's just a generic fruity sweetness. You may could call it an apple note if you notice it that well, but it's more of just a fruity, sweet, powdery, slightly spicy, but very woody fragrance with a little bit of aromatics punched here and there. Very musky, very expansive, and actually a little fresher of a profile than the original Boss Bottled, but still very enjoyable. Probably one that actually makes it a little more wearable because of that freshness for most of the year round. So not exclusively in the colder weather like fall and winter. You could definitely wear it in the colder weather, but I think you can also wear it even in the spring, maybe even at nighttime in the summer. Just spray it up a little less or a little more depending on where you're going and what you're going to be doing. But one that I think is dead center between young and old. You're a younger guy, you'd enjoy this. If you're an older, more mature guy who maybe wants something a little more formal and signature casual, then you could definitely wear this as well. Very enjoyable, very smooth, very well blended. Doesn't smell anything that's, like I said, of its price range. It smells way higher than that. Well put together, and one that is going to still pull compliments because of that sweet freshness, and people aren't going to be smelling it thinking it's something that's overly cheap. They're going to think it's going to smell actually fairly close to that Boss Bottled profile. But again, this is the last one of this lineup, and actually a little bit of an amalgamation of some of these other aspects that are in these other profiles, but one that is still very enjoyable and more of the overall feel, like every day, every season kind of thing, like the summary of all these put together. But yeah, absolutely love this one, and one that, even though it's my first buy, I think would be a nice first buy for you as well in this lineup. It is this one, Alfa Romeo Green. And there you guys, the very short, small line of fragrances from Alfa Romeo. Again, all of these you've probably more than likely seen out at rack stores, especially Ross Just for Less, and you probably skipped out on them, but after this video, hopefully you'll be willing to take the chance and step out on faith on that limb and try them out and see what you think. I definitely would encourage you to do so, because I think you'll be fairly surprised by how these are going to smell. And you might have noticed that I did not talk about performance when going through each of them, and that's because they all actually have a very similar performance, both in longevity and projection. Some nuances and differences here and there, but ever so small depending on the profile. Of course, it depends on the time of year that you wear it, how much you spray on, and where you're going and what you're doing. Some of them may be louder or more intimate, but they all pretty much have right at that under average performer, probably a little less than that, maybe 5 hours longevity on average, with a nice medium projection overall. But again, it depends on a lot of factors, but they all pretty well perform the same. But one thing's for certain, they all have a consistent quality, which is way higher than their price, and they all actually have very good perfumers behind their name. So Alfa Romeo definitely made sure to put in the money, time, and effort that something would come out that would be of a good quality, despite it ending up at rack stores. But if you own any of these, or you smelled them before, or maybe you thought about getting them but decided not to, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Are you going to go out and get these, or have you already had these, or do you have them now and do you enjoy them, or do you not? Let me know all of that down in the comments below. I love reading your comments. I love getting an interaction with you guys and having that community going. And as usual, if you enjoyed this video, if you like what you've seen here, and if this video has even helped you out just a little bit, please consider giving the video a like and a thumbs up. Let me know that you have enjoyed this, that it has helped you, and it is something that you want to keep seeing more of. And per usual, if you're watching this video and you're not subscribed to the channel, but you do like what you've seen here or what you've seen elsewhere on the channel, I encourage you to please consider supporting this channel by subscribing and hitting that notification bell, so you can see all the other things that I'm working on and having in the background to bring out to you guys for you all to watch and enjoy. I'd love for you to be right along with me on this cheap and inexpensive fragrance journey, and hey, maybe I can even help you discover something new along the way. And there you go, guys. That's all I have for today's video. Again, thank you for being here and for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. And I will see all of you again in the next video. Be blessed.